the countdown started, and now
We
now
are
it says
live.
live. So for anyone who's listening, Kara and I are not very tech proficient, and we have figured out now how to navigate this, which is great. And
Oh, you did something.
now they're advertising to us, which is great,
Oh, just what
and
we
giving
need.
us pop-ups.
No pop-ups.
Did you ever watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
No.
There
I can honestly
is,
say I
yes.
have not.
Well, there's a wonderful episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force where where the fry guy, I forget his name, he gets stuck with all these like pop-ups, and he gets stuck in this digital world, and there's this wizard that is, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a little too odd to try to
That's
recount
pretty
here,
odd.
but that's kind of how I feel sometimes. I think on the scale of Luddite to tech savvy, I am completely on the Luddite side.
No. Me too. So we'll give it a few minutes to see. Where am I staring at the camera? Okay. A few minutes to see who wants to log on still. But you're at Poet in Pajamas with Kara, Dorris, and Gwen Edward, soon to be Paradice. So if that's where you wanted to be, you're at the right place. This is really weird.
It's so strange to be on the other side of it. I've watched so many episodes of Poet in Pajamas where I've been, you can see like the stuff going across the screen and you can see what's happening, and now to be on this side, it just feels odd.
Exactly. I don't even know where I'm looking. I'm like, where do I look?
You look into the pit.
The pit of despair.
Yes, because that's
The pit of yourself.
the pit of the soul. That's what writers do, right?
That's what writers
What is that?
try to do.
Stare into the abyss, and the abyss stares back. Yeah, that's kind of like everyday life, I think. So let me silence my phone before we jump in.
Yep. Wow.
It's like at the theater, right? You gotta remember to turn off
Silence
your phone. Although here, no one comes down the aisle and kicks you out for being rude, because they can't.
True.
And I think we'll give it, what did we say? Until 2 or 3 after?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give it about another 30, 40 seconds or so.
Sounds good. This is the number of people.
Yeah, and I think that there should be an icon here that I need to figure out how to navigate.
That shows the comments.
And the question is,
What are you pushing?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm pushing. Who knows? I don't understand technology. Let's see here.
Charlie just told me every time I talk, my dog Mona Lisa wags her tail at home. So, that's cute. She finally misses me. What did the email say about the comments? Toggle between something and something.
Yeah.
It was the that. So,
This is the first part of every reading, right? Is like navigating how to get to the comments.
I'm so sorry. We'll start Annie saying it now as soon as we find out how to see the comments. To read the comments, you'll have to toggle between PIP's icon to your own at the right of the share button.
I'll send the bat signal out.
I don't know what that means.
Well, I think we can go ahead and navigate here. Okay, I'll wait for this to come back. I think we should go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think we should.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Poets in Pajamas. I think this is 127 that we're at now.
Yes.
And we would like to thank Poets in Pajamas for hosting us and giving us this digital venue in which to share our work. And thank you to Sundress as well. Also, a big thank you to the Cupboard Pamphlet, who published this little chapbook, Carnival Bound, or Please Unwrap Me, that we are going to be reading from tonight. I guess we should do some introductions first. This is Kara Dorris. She is my friend of, I think, 10 years now. We've been friends since before we both had gray hairs. And she is my partner in Mexican food. And she also is my CSI slash crime show binge watching buddy and a poet. And Kara's work considers and examines the body and womanhood and disability. Through the facets of her personal history, Kara tends to evoke a complicated sense of nostalgia with reflection, and at times sorrow as well. I think what I'm learning most about my own writing through collaborating with Kara and reading her work is that consideration of language, consideration of silence, and consideration of heavy honesty is something that should be at the forefront of process. And that's what I really take from you. She's the author of 2 books of poetry, How Ruin Will Travel and When the Body is a Guardrail, and they are both from Finishing Line Press.
Thank you so much. Am I turning red? I must be turning red by now. Embarrassment and joy and, of course, nervousness for this reading. So thank you so much. This is Gwendolyn Edwards, soon to be Paradice. So if you're a little bit confused, her book is by Gwendolyn Paradice, but we might call her Gwendolyn Edward tonight. No worries. Same person. She has been my best friend for what seems like forever, in a good way. She introduced me to the joys of gas station food like pizza and blueberry cake donut holes. And she binge watches Scientology's docuseries with me by Leah Remini. So great friendship. Gwen is an excellent prose writer. I call her my fiction pusher because she pushes me to write more fiction than I would on my own. But her work is incredibly beautiful and amazing. She inspires me to look at what is said and not said, what is real and what isn't, but also what's heard and misheard. She has so many beautiful magical realism elements that I'm always surprised, and I feel like she gives a gift every time she writes a story, seriously. Her collection of short stories won a prize at Black Lawrence Press last year, and it's called More Enduring for Having Been Broken. And her characters are endearing as much as they are enduring and completely unforgettable. So, yay to Gwendolyn Paradice. Charlie's like, no, it's not Paradise, Kara. And I'm like, are you sure? And Charlie's like, no.
Well, I thought it was Paradice for a year, so, you know.
Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get started reading. Tonight we're going to read from our collaborative collection of flash fiction called Carnival Bound. This is a really cute, we think, collection of flash fiction. One thing is kind of cool about it is we have dual titles. So you'll notice that the book is called Carnival Bound, but if we open it up, it's also called Or Please Unwrap Me. We call it our anti-titles. So each flash fiction piece has a title and an anti-title. But the collection is all about disability fairy tales and how women are recruited to join this carnival that is very exploitive. And then, of course, how they also escape it. So without more descriptions, Gwen's going to go ahead and read our very first short story.
Yeah, so the first piece in the collection has that dual title, and it's called Origami Body, or She Had Always Been Constructed by Rough Hands. She had always been constructed by rough hands, drafted by shuddering fingers, read and reconfigured as a text for so long that all the belief in the words that were her gave rise to a burgeoning body, a real one. But what was real, she'd ask much later. Wet paper, crumpled and left to dry, a mass of pulpy bones and parchment skin. She was revised through languages that interbred and evolved and died. She was reworked by the hands that handled her so many times that sometimes she wasn't sure who, where, or when she was. Which is why, on the day her pleated pages unfurled to birdsong on the carnival grounds, she did not ask about her new home. On the day she became a woman, she was also the memory of petrichor and broken stilettos and nutmeg. On the day she became a woman, her editor turned her over, held the thinness of her body up to the light, thumbed the creases of her plots, and said, "What a mess I've made." On the day she became a woman, her editor bartered body for peacock quill, and she folded herself into a breast pocket, her pages enduring the flattening stroke of the dungeon master's hand. On the day she became a woman, she lost the words that were never hers in the den of street food dealers, elephant shrieks, and low wails of other women's crying. On the day she became a woman, she wondered, "Where is my editor?" But he was long gone, leaving her to explain the gaps between her words, her breasts, to the dungeon master's apprentice who had better problems to address. "What does it mean to be received?" she asked at first, and then, "What does it mean to be perceived?" She never did notice all her thoughts were only ever questions, and ones without answers at that. She'd been a fairy tale once, or many of them, because she had been many texts. Maybe this was why her body, now on display once again, looked the way it did. How could one body decide what to be when it had been crafted from so many others? Her editor was partially blind. Maybe that was the problem. He would insert, delete, restructure, rewrite, add, spill tea on her, sneeze on her, leave blotches of green ink and sometimes blood. That was his mistake, you should know, the blood. A physician, a psychiatrist, and a philosopher, does this sound like a joke? Because it's not, would later tell her that DNA, the handing down of it, whether through conception or blood left on the page of a fairy tale, could inherit trauma, could pass it on. She wasn't even a freak. To be a freak, she'd first have to be recognizable, something familiar. She wasn't even origami, though that's what they called her, because people are always seeking to term, to give a word to something so it can be understood, or at least talked about. Just because she was paper and art did not mean she was origami. She could fold herself into any animal: zebra, penguin, T-Rex, pig-nosed rat, dodo bird, snail, pink fairy armadillo, man. It was when she was folded into a man that people forgot she was just paper. She could go anywhere as him, and they would defer to him, ask for his opinion on the flavor of snow cone they should buy, inquire as to whether or not the fortune teller told the truth, ask him to reach up and grab the stuffed unicorn hanging from the top row in the shooting tent. It was an odd feeling to be both visible and invisible, to be primary, but for prominence to hold such a meaningless weight. She weighed almost nothing. She was the weight of 13 plucked clovers, of half a Kleenex, of a condom wrapper torn open and thrown away. Sometimes, on especially windy days, the ringmaster's apprentice would stand beside her and spritz her with water, to give her weight, to hold her down. This made it hard to change her shape, made her rip apart, rending joints and breaking bones and ripping tendons, and on these days she would have to be carried back to her trailer, all the way weeping and crying ink. She would shift in her dreams then, but no one knew. Not even she knew. But she would wake up wrinkled and slow with delayed onset muscle soreness, and still she would work. Every morning she would ask herself, what is performance? But the question was a cone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to read one of the other stories really fast, and then we'll be open for questions. So I'm going to read the fourth story, one of the ones I wrote, called Trailer Park Princess, or She Had Always Been Someone Else's Falling Star. She had always been someone else's falling star, someone else's dream catcher, although those wishes were not always kind or desperate. Sometimes they were short-sighted and concealed even from themselves. There were two witches to the story. There were two witches to every story. She ran away slowly, limping, kept her eyes on the ground to keep from tripping over vines and rabbit holes. Any small dip or bump meant the difference between cloud and cave. Her body was always political, even for the princess of the Oak Trail Shores Trailer Park, protector of small animals and traveling salesmen. When they imagine her still, they don't remember one leg, Snow White, dragging the ground behind. They don't remember one arm, Snow White, 3 inches shorter, her skin spider-veined. They forget, like snowflakes, each soul following its own route from sky to ground. They remember that fruit was eaten, probably an apple. An apple was poisoned. Someone was innocent. Someone was blamed. Someone was here. Then someone went away. The mother had always been queen bee of the trailer park until her daughter. Then her husband left to make money drilling on an oil rig and died. And so the story goes on. One ruled with selfishness. A daughter gained power through kindness without wanting power at all, like magic. The mother never understood why they called her daughter Beauty. She didn't have big breasts, flawless skin, flowing hair, no golden ratio, no symmetry. No one saw her daughter's imperfections. The mother was sure her daughter was a witch who entranced everyone else. So the mother did what she did best, defended her territory, poisoned that apple pie, called it a fated accident, had her traveling salesman lover dump the body in a passing boxcar. The whole trailer park mourned and wept, but they thought their princess dead, the boxcar a Viking send-off, and so love ended except in memory. End of the line, a daughter ran straight into a traveling carnival at the train yard. The carnival didn't curb her spirit. She still took in strays, stray dogs, stray outcasts, stray emotions. She was so sensitive. She could take other people's feelings into her own body. New tumors sprouted beneath her skin, under touch. There are 3 hunters to the story. There are 3 hunters to every story. The crowds, the witch, and the girl, only their prey differed. The most devoted disciples devoured her. It was the way she moved, the first to give way, to determine the mathematical point of intersection and adjust speed accordingly. The way her hands hovered to catch fall, the way her eyes searched the ground for grenades. Anyone so careful would be careful with another's heart. Too full of care if you never love anyone more than another. Those who think you are special see what they want to see, and those who hate you do the same. There was no neutral parties. There were no neutral parties. Not the plants in the crowd, not the con artist, not their marks. There are 4 kingdoms in the story. There are always 4 kingdoms in the story. 1, the trailer park. 2, the carnival. 3, the witch bodies, girl and mother. 4, the poison fruit. You see, her body was political. Her body was a map. Blue spider veins, disguised as rivers, eyes as lakes. Oceans existed in the soles of her feet, so when the tide came in, she limped. Magnets brought the landmarks closer to the surface of her skin. Her body's measurements were GPS coordinates to something secret. She acclimated, taught herself to throw knives, found a balance within still that her own body lacked. Threw knives at various fruit lined up, always 7 to represent the 7 deadly sins she'd been warned about. She also threw knives at the fortune teller's head, and sometimes at an apple balanced on top of the fortune teller's head, as the fortune teller stuffed her face with 7 donuts. It made for a good act. The crowd worshipped her. Between acts, she ran the Ferris wheel too, signed autographs and plastic knives and plastic fruit. Felt at home in small-town parking lots, strip mall churches. They say she returned to the trailer park, in the light, in the spring, in the birds that delicately landed on the telephone lines. But she knew better than to try to return to the way things were. She wondered if she never went home, if it meant her mother had won. Wondered if anyone ever wins. When the fortune teller said, "This place blows, let's run away," she didn't hesitate. She had never wanted to be a deity, had yet to realize everything worshipped something, that it didn't matter because you couldn't see either way when staring directly into light or into darkness.
Gosh, thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
I've had this image, because I've obviously seen this manuscript so many times now, of the fortune teller with all the donuts and the knife throwing. I've had it for a long time in my head. I keep coming back to that. So we are happy to take some questions now, and I think one was posed about this collaborative process and how we came together to work on this and what we brought to the table as individual writers. And so I think, Kara, you could probably explain how this got started the best.
Well, I was teaching a disability literature class, and Gwen was taking a disability literature class in her PhD program. And I said on the phone one day, "You know what? I want to write disability fairy tales." And Gwen was like, "Okay, I want to do that too."
This is not our first collaboration. So we've been working together for years, and it's fairly common for one of us to have an idea and throw it to the other to see if there's any interest in co-writing. And I had been in that course, and I had finished my disability theory course and then was moving into some other work as a folklorist. So I'm trained through folkloristics. And I had just finished reading Anne Schmiesing's book on disability, disease, and I think deformity in the Grimm's fairy tales, and that was like right at the front of my mind. And at the same time, I was thinking about freak shows because I was reading Rosemary Garland Thompson. I always mix them up. Her book as well, and so I asked Kara if they could be disability fairy tales, but also a freak show.
Yes.
Fairy tales.
I had just read Geek Love by Catherine Dunn, and oh my goodness, you should read it.
Yeah, fantastic book.
Geek Love. So good.
So this collection, even though it's pretty lyric, and I think the overarching narrative might feel kind of tenuous, it's really informed by the disability theory and disabled writers that we were reading at the time. And then we just traded work back and forth, and we would hop on the phone and talk about the characters we were inventing and how they might fit into the narrative, and we just sort of went from there.
Yeah.
I think Kara is very gifted with imagery, and she can sort of slow things down to like those lyric moments that I feel unable to do these days as a writer.
What she means is I can't move the plot forward to save my life because I'm a poet, but Gwen, the prose writer, can always push us past and keep us going with forward momentum.
I think that tends to be where we're at with every collaboration that we have. I'm all about structure and narrative, and you're all about the moment and the language.
Just trying to write something. It's fiction.
Another question that had come up was what we were reading lately and what things were sort of in our back pockets. And I think that we we're always texting back and forth and recommending text, so it's no surprise that we end up with a lot of similar things, but also a lot of things that maybe the other person hasn't read. So where are you right now with what you're reading and who you recommend?
Right now I'm reading Space Struck by Paige Lewis. Oh my lord, it's such a gorgeous, thought-provoking, so many moments of heart-rending poetry. And I got Diane Seuss's Frank Sonnets, definitely. Ew, and Jane Wong's How Not to Be Afraid of Everything. Those are the 3 poetry books that I am currently reading, and I love them.
I am still trying to finish reading all the poetry books that Kara recommended to me last
That's
time.
okay.
So
I'm still trying to finish that Oyemi book.
I'm on.
Who I love. Oyemi.
Yeah, Helen Oyemi is fantastic. But I'm reading Cheng's Obit right now, and I'm going to teach part of that.
So good. I'm going to use that in my
Next
class too
semester.
for form.
On the prose side, I think I might recommend. I don't know. I don't think they're very well known, but Arkady and Boris Strugatsky, they have a book that I'm just finished rereading called Roadside Picnic that I love. And there's a lot of people claiming that it influenced Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation, and there's a movie called Stalker. I think it was made in the 70s that's also based on that book. But it's very, very strange, very surreal settings. I would highly recommend that. And also China Miéville. I am behind on that. And so Perdido Street Station. Fantastic settings, strange people, strange situations.
Yeah. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado.
Yeah. I think a final question we had was, what besides poetry inspires us as writers?
Are you looking at me like I should answer that?
Yes, I think you should. Yes, you should answer it first.
Wow, beyond poetry, I love art. I am not an expert in any way, but I love to look at art and imagine the stories before, after, during. But I also really love pop culture too. Like my students just tuned me into the word stan, like a stalker fan, and I'm so out of it that I didn't even know what that was. And so I'm really interested in pop culture and the contradictions and like the reasoning behind why things become popular. Like a stan. I know Eminem, blah, 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 but I just didn't know it. I never used it as a portmanteau. I love portmanteaus.
Sorry, I'm thinking about how far behind I am with my students as well, and the things they bring to class, and I have no clue what they're talking about.
Yeah, there were so many things I had no clue about.
One of the things that I've talked to Kara about for a long time, and it's always really on the forefront of my mind, is anything that has to do with place. I am always hyper aware of place, and I've said this in other places. That I think it's because, being Native American makes you constantly aware of what is ancestral occupied native land and what has been colonized. And that's sort of everywhere I go, and everything I'm doing is always tied to place and understanding place. So I read a lot of cultural geography and a lot of humanistic geography. And right now, I'm also very much into exploring landscape and place in video games. Because I don't understand technology, as I mentioned earlier in the reading, I am flabbergasted by how these places are created and how characters and players are able to navigate them and evoke a real sense of being there and interacting with landscape when it doesn't exist. So I'm inspired by video games a lot. I think right now is probably where I'm at. There was a question about anti-titles, if we wanted to answer that really quickly.
Sure.
And why we have titles and anti-titles and how that came about.
Cannot choose just one, and why should we have to?
Yeah, titles are such a strange thing, right? Sometimes I want to issue them entirely, but these characters, I don't know, I feel like when you're writing a text that is concerned with disability and it's concerned with representation, especially something that is as concise and small as this chapbook, there's a lot that can't be said. And there is a significant amount of communication and what's the word I want to use? You can imply a lot through titling. And so I think we are both really curious to explore too how titles create one perception and these anti-titles or subtitles create a different understanding of character.
an alternate way of looking at form too. So the world that says we can just have one title. Well, who said that, and why? Why do we have to stick to these very strict forms? I'm all about breaking out of forms and bending genres and blurring them. So I think of these as a lot of poetry, honestly, as much poetry as they are prose.
Yes, you make me feel much better about myself
So
as a
you're
writer
totally
when you
a
say
poet.
that. I know.
You're a poet.
I used to think I was a poet. Now
You're a poet.
maybe I have poetic moments.
You are
Leave it
a
at
poetic
that.
writer, most definitely. You should totally read more Enduring Private Been Broken. So beautiful. I loved it. I taught it in my class, and my students adored it. Seriously, adored it.
Oh, the embarrassment! I have to navigate. I have to
Adored
navigate away
it.
now.
But I think we hit our 30-minute mark.
Yeah, I think we're at time, and we would love to leave y'all with some epigraphs from the chapbook, which may sound a little bit strange, but like I said, this book was informed by a lot of other texts, a lot of other scholars, and a lot of other writers. And we wanted to make sure when this book went to press, and thank you to Kelly and Todd again for putting this out there, that we were bringing our work into conversation with the people who inspired us. And the epigraph that I offered to the chapbook reads, "The century-long heyday of American freak shows represented a dramatic resurgence of the tradition of publicly displaying and reading extraordinary bodies. Today, the notion of the freak show that displays the bodies of disabled people for profit and public entertainment is both repugnant and anachronistic, rejected, but nevertheless recent and compelling in memory." And that is from Rosemary Garland Thompson's book, Extraordinary Bodies, Figuring Physical Disability in American Culture and Literature.
And I chose a poem or short little stanza excerpt from Vassar Miller's monologue in her speaker's own voice. She's amazing. She's an amazing disability poet from Texas. And I'm just going to read the whole poem. It's really short. It's called Dramatic Monologue in the Speaker's Own Voice. I walk naked under my clothes like anyone else, and I'm not a bomb to explode in your hands. Of course you are not. I would not accuse you of thinking of holding me down, but of holding me up. Yet sometimes I love to be eased from the envelope of sleep, stroked gently open, although it would take some doing, on my part, that is. My lost virginity would hurt me the way ghosts of their limbs make amputees shriek, my womanhood too seldom used. Have you ever viewed me this way? No, none of you ever have. I'm either a monster in search of a horror movie to be in, or else I'm a brain floating within a body. Lost my place, whose sides I must gingerly touch while you glance discreetly away. Sometimes when you hear it go bump, it gives you a nasty shock, after which you insist I am glued to my flesh like a fly in a paste pot. Maybe you think everyone is. That, or a delicate lady in a dirty sty mincing on tiptoe. I wish you'd learn better before we all totter into our coffins where there's no straight way to lie crooked.
Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yes,
Thank you
so
again
much.
to Poets in Pajamas.
Yes.